Well, I missed two classes, and I uh I don't like to do that, but just on those Wednesdays, some things came up that I just couldn't juggle it and make the class in the evening. And I think one of the successes of my Sangha is that um, I've always been so steady. So even though I've just arrived at 6 o'clock from India, I feel great though. I really feel good. It was a smooth ride. I thought that's why I don't have T-lock. I have my kind of this kind of shirt on. So I thought it'd be a very interesting class. I think what I'll do is I'll share with you a seminar that I recently gave. It was very interesting. Um, the preaching in Russia is very, very sophisticated, and there's many groups. And anyway, two of the main groups, and I'm very deeply connected with both of them. They met for a seminar on preaching. I wasn't sure what the rest of the seminar was like, but yeah, just different aspects of it. So the organizers asked me to give um, two sessions, about 150 devotees, and both groups I'm connected to. One I'm recently connected to because the leader of that group, she has I don't even I call it Bhagavad Gita University. They say there's sometimes 4,000 people register for the course. So I teach the teachers, and I'm doing Brihad Bhagavatamrita for the teachers. But they're very sincere what they're doing. So they asked me to speak about preaching, and I wrote down about 10 different aspects. And I can say, by Prabhupada's grace, even the organizer told me that it was the most popular seminar or something like that. Well, so even though I came from the plane, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Jnana Timarandasya Gananjana Salakaya, Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasade Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Anyway, we're riding on the Belt Parkway, and I feel I'm riding through my biography. We've just come to exit 11N, Kings Plaza. That's the place where I escaped in the by kidnapping Leela. Um, so let me try, you know. Um, So the first point I try to explain to people, and this is a point that I've regularly explained, um, is that the most important thing for a preacher is, I said I don't even have all my notes here, but the most important thing for a preacher is, let me see if I have that. No, I don't. Anyway, is realization, a depth of understanding of the particular subject that you're trying to communicate. I've said this many, many times, and you've heard this, that more important than speaking the truth, or as important as speaking the truth, is having the truth understood. And to do that, you have to know the language of the audience. And it doesn't, obviously you can't, the audience speaks French and you speak English, there's a problem. But even within English, there's just different ways, as our good friend Satya Hari said in one of my classes, that words become impregnated with meaning over their usage. And different generations use different words in different ways. You get the same word, God, religion, surrender, um, authority. I know when I say authority, I'll obviously have more concept of someone who knows. Another person has a concept of someone who controls. So you really, you have to understand the subject deeply to communicate in a different language than what you heard. And people really appreciated that point, because if you don't have realization, we see one group of people without realization keep it in the same language, even though it's not the language of the people they're speaking to. And other people trying to communicate, reform the original concept for the frame reference of the audience, but they're not able to do it effectively without losing the initial charisma, so to speak. In my Monday morning greetings, I've been speaking about, I wrote that article, Build Devotees, Not Temples, and Srila Prabhupada's Genius and Entrepreneurship. I was speaking about the routine. Max Weber, famous German sociologist of religion, spoke about the routinization of charisma. So we see that in the history. There's charisma, there's some Shakti in the original founder, and then an institution is required to take that which is proper of a value in the future, and they want to preserve it, and they want to communicate it, and you need to socialize. And then we see that charisma has been lost. It hasn't been communicated. So I really talked about this concept of realization, um, and that's the preliminary thing. But it doesn't mean just because someone has realization of Shastra, he also is a communicator. It's the fundamental foundation of it. But there's also communicative skills. There's also emotional intelligence, different factors. Um, there's a book that I used when I originally gave seminars in the yoga world to establish my authority, speaking on subjects that are within their frame of reference, like, because people are studying yoga. So what is yoga? What is karma? So many things like that, and establishing my authority. So eventually I can build up a frame of reference where I can touch the subject of the personality of Godhead. And I read one book is a famous Christian preacher, Andy Stanley. I know Raghunath sometimes listens to him. I know Rasanath. And he wrote a book. He wrote Communications for Change, where he explains that someone can be a very advanced spiritually, but not be a good communicator. He's of course, Prabhupada did say, it means you don't change the meaning, but you could present realization means communication. Prabhupada said that. I think it's the fourth canto, the first verse. There's a definition. You don't change the meaning, but you present it in an interesting manner. But some people, um, they don't do that, or they can do it good in a particular context of their own taste and their own nature. Sometimes you have to find out the kind of people you can talk to, you know, where you kind of have their language. There may be some people, younger people today, where I may not have, their language or et cetera. Um, but yeah, so he said there are many good people at advanced, but they can't give a seminar. And then he gave this outline, which is I, you, God, you, we. And I use that. I means that whenever I would give a seminar, I would be very conscious to introduce the subject in relationship to my own experience. So I introduce myself to the audience so they will be inclined to hear from me. Then you then try to shift that to their experience, something that it relates to them, so they'll be interested in hearing. And then God means the facts. So someone may have realization and may present God, may present all the facts, right? But the audience doesn't know him and they don't know how it's relevant. So, um, so I think that point was very much appreciated for people, especially as there was such a lack of communication between them. Yeah. Um, and then I explained, because there was such a dichotomy between the groups initially, but they worked hard so that everybody did stay. That there's different, yeah, I think Bori John or someone, I remember asked Narayan Maharaj something about this Vaishnav or something like that. And he didn't criticize him. He just said you have to understand there are different types of Vaishnavas. There are different types of Vaishnavas. And then I explained, just like, because I want to explain that someone has a realization is the foundation to understand something such deeply, to reform it, but you have to have the skills also to reform it. Um, you have to have the skills to restructure it. Um, yeah, that's yeah. So trying to explain that to people. So I explained that, and that there's different types of psychology. This guy's, I'm in the car, really crazy guy. Just almost got it. So if Tota wasn't wow, this guy's crazy. Me and Tota could have had road rage if we weren't like so absorbed in Shastra. Right. So they're different shapes of metal, and they both become heat and light, but that they become the same. Yes, they become the same. They both become pure, but they maintain their initial shape. So devotees can become pure. It doesn't mean they become exactly the same, even in terms of their abilities to communicate who they can reach. Um, doesn't mean that they become the same. Um, and then I quoted also from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, how even on the highest platform, there are different spiritual personalities that are completely opposite, not in their purity, but in their psychology. So anyway, this point was really appreciated by the people. And now that I'm doing it, it's 10 times better than when I spoke, even though it was very much appreciated. And now in my mind, this is why preaching is the best Krishna-shīlanam. It's the best way to keep the mind absorbed. Um, it's the best way to keep the mind absorbed because there's so many things going on. I'm writing my Monday morning readings in the back of my mind now as I'm giving the class. There's not an inch for anything else when you get absorbed in communicating like this. And and then the second point, it's a real point that I emphasize is um, uh, a preacher should be empowering. If you're not empowering, then there's a limit to how far you can actually share your message. And empowering means the ability to see what a person can do, encourage it, facilitate it, and then outline the broad context by which they work with the ISKCON or whatever, some Sangha. And disempowering is when you just focus on the parameters. Prabhupada disciple, not Prabhupada disciple, woman, man, gender, this, zone, this. Yeah, of course, there may be these parameters in certain contexts. But when people don't recognize people's abilities and empower them, then it becomes disempowering. So I think this is so important, um, that people actually. And I'd have to say one thing. It's very interesting. This lady, her name's Malika Mala, wonderful devotee, my God. And she came to my Puri retreat, and she just loved it so much. Because usually, she has so many followers, and she just came alone. It's a real relief. But she loved it so much that she just went all out to get me to participate in her Bhagavad Gita University. And when they come to Vrindavan, to get me to speak to her people. So I saw, why does she have 200 people helping her? I saw it with myself. She understood better than most people understand with me. Other people I interact with, but he really has this ability. I really want it. And can you do this? So now she has me engaged in her. So empowering. Then another point I made is that a preacher must be non-sectarian. But I made this point of in a very interesting way, that there's two ways that you can be non-sectarian. One, you don't interact and open yourself up to other Vaishnavas that may be able to contribute to you or serve your mission or increase Lord Chaitanya's. You don't open yourself up to them just because they're from a different kind of lineage. The other type of that's sectarian. The other type of sectarianism is when you or someone else enters into another sangha with your own agenda for your own group. That's also sectarian. And I gave two examples of both. One example where I was very open, I let someone in, It happened 2 or 3 times or something like that. And then they were pushing their own agenda in such a way. They're pushing their own agenda in such a way that I just had to cut them off. But then the other one is, you remember when I invited Sundar Govinda, Sundar Gopal, that wonderful Vaishnava, and he just came to, nourish us and serve our mission. And I did seminars with him. Or Rasik Mohan, Rasikananda Swami. We invited him to our Sanga. And it was wonderful. He was really able to, inspire us. So I gave 2 examples of that, and in this I would mention that to even experiment with this, you have to make sure that your Sangha is very strong. Because if someone comes in that pushes their own agenda, and they come into my group, they're just going to lose. I'm not going to lose. Goodbye. But if your Sangha is not strong, it'll affect you. Wow, now I'm passing. It's like a real Coney Island. My grandmother used to take me to steeplechase, the man with a funny face. We go on those rides. I see the parachute jump. Yeah, parachute jump, the cyclone. It's like the wild mouse. It's only Cropsey Avenue, 1935 Cropsey Avenue. How depressing. I'm just Cropsey Avenue, yeah. Where where I grew up. Okay. So that was sectarian. And then there was you have to be a preacher has to be proactive and not reactive. And I gave example at the seminar that there was 80% women. So is this going to be a problem in the future? If you have a society that's either 80% women or 80% men, is it going to be a problem? Right? So I think a person can see that there's going to be some problems, that just social problems that arise if you're just preaching to one gender or another, but you're having but you're trying to serve both. It's okay. And so you see, rather than waiting for the problem to come, do something about it. So it's 80% women. What is your preaching? And is it the yoga world, which just attracts women? Okay, that's great. But now what do you do for men? And after I gave that seminar, this Malik Amala's group, one of their men came to me and said, yes, we realized this recently, and I'm to give a Bhagavad Gita class for men. So, and then another thing I mentioned, I gave the example of the Jewish Alatra. No, I read that article. We grew up with, I think it's Longwood, right? The Jewish, where all the Hasidic Jews are. Lakewood. 200 synagogues, 100 yeshivas, including the second biggest yeshiva, there were 5,000 people. Every 20 years, they grow by 3 times. So a movement that really wants to share its message, the fundamental way is through the children. The fundamental way is through their children. And if and if you just concentrate on constantly making new people. So I said, as people who are actually preaching or sharing, you have to be really concerned for the children. I mentioned when I went to Russia, that's where I saw America was far ahead of them, that they were the Sunday schools and things like that, was so wonderful. You could bring, and but they told me, no, they've already realized that, and they're making special camps for children, special things for children. So that's another point. Another point I made is um, Vrindavan, the holy dhams, because we want to, if you're preaching or sharing a particular tradition and you believe in it, you want people to stay, and they're going to stay and be able to tolerate their karma. You become a devotee, you still, we're free from karma in one way, but another way, being under Krishna, and the body is karma, and being under Krishna, and karma is meant to purify us, we still go through so many experiences. And the spiritual process solves it by your internal development, how you react to it. Not necessarily you don't get cancer, you don't get sick, you don't break up with the relationships and this and scandals and slander and sick. So why are people going to stay? Because they have an experience, a goal. And my own particular preaching, and all you people that are listening here know that that's one of the main things that keeps you, is your experience in Vrindavan and knowing that this is the goal. This is the goal. Okay, I'm working. I have my karma. I have my family. I have things, but this is my goal. But if you don't have that objective, then you'll change. When the difficulties come, you'll say, "Oh, I'm not. Why do this?" Um, so that was another realization I gave. I'm pretty excited now because now I think this is important stuff, and I think I have to write this stuff up. Um, so that Vrindavan experience, that trust is faith by experience. And you can get that experience coming to the Holy Dham. I think better than any place else. So powerful, at least in my own experience. Um, um, then I discussed the importance of culture and how to get that culture. That's so important, the culture. I think Mahatma Gandhi and someone was asked, they had one. So the culture, and culture is how you construct your environment to make impressions in the consciousness to help you relate better, learn better, and communicate better. So I used to like, and this 20, 30 years ago, where all my disciples, we used to at least visit once the Bhattacharya and Nanda Dulal, cultured people and their children, just to see the culture exhibited. Um, Especially in Vaishnavism, it helps you avoid Vaishnava aparahat. If rather than responding by your impulses to all the crazy things that happen in the world, you have a sense of etiquette, respect. I spoke about that. Um, and I spoke also in preaching, and this is something that I've taken up, and the need for public intellectuals. That there are difficult points that come up and apparent contradictions or subtleties or resolve things. And you need people that deal with them. And that's one of the things I like to do with my Monday morning greetings is deal with these issues and give tools for the preacher, just like I wrote articles. I gave an example of that. Like I wrote a Krishna conscious view of homosexuality. It's a subtle point. Prabhupada said some things, but the world has changed. So how do you adjust all these things? And it's important to have people that tackle those issues. And I try to, or the problem of evil. I've done several articles of that. Or is there love in the material world? I got a lot of response to that when I repeated it again. And then the final thing that I spoke on, this was good. This is actually a good thing to be able to do in the car. It's great. So I don't have that long, boring ride from the airport where I'm harassing Tota Gopinath. I'll be there yet. So, and this was the power of Srila Prabhupada, the power of the dust of Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. And it's an interesting story, but I was interviewed in the Bhakti Center, maybe about the hardcore straight edge scene. Someone was doing an article, and I was involved in that preaching, as you all know. And I started talking about how it started. That there was concerts in Tompkins Square Park, and Lakshmi Nrsimha started to do Food for Life there. And somehow or other, I'm not sure how it happened, the Cro-Mags became into it, and Harley Flanagan became the Vartman Padashrika Guru for Kastuva and Raghunath. And then the straight edge scene and how that all happened. But the point I made is that Krishna consciousness is like mining for gold. It goes in veins. There's a lot of thing, and then it runs out. They keep on digging in the same place. You're not going to get any place. So it started with the hippies, right? Started with the hippies. That was kind of like a vein. And then, it kind of runs out, It's kind of really sad that you see people that are still hippies now. It was okay when they were 20, but grow up and get a job. That's what they were telling you then. But it really looks stupid now if you're still a hippie. So it's not a good preaching thing. Hippies, it runs out, but we still go on. We still try for that. You don't know when the pain runs out. But then it was a straight edge and hardcore thing. And so many people, the temples were desolate, and then that's filled up again. And then when that vein ran out, then it was revived with the yoga preaching. And the interesting thing is, and this is that the three places where Krishna consciousness was saved from extinction and revived in the West, each one of those places, from the hippies to the straight edge, hardcore, to the yoga, which began with Bhakti Center, which it all began on the Lower East Side. And I said, why? Because the dust of Prabhupada's lotus feet is still in the cracks of the pavement. So anyway, it was a longer seminar than that, but kind of really excited because I was like, well, how am I going to write a Monday morning greeting? Because going from Govardhan, and kind of packing up and leaving and, running around and doing what I have to do before. And then the day before I left, I hosted Shyam Sundari, and I hosted Shyam Sundari and 20 people from Colombia in my apartment. And we had a incredible feast. We had chapatis and this fennel rice and this bean sabji with mustard and a mixed sabji and cauliflower pakoras and cauliflower pakoras and tomato chutney and dal and yogurt and these kind of chips, like not potato chips, but some kind of chips and a pineapple drink and Raj Bogues as big as your head, Rascal as big as your head. There's a great Brahmachari Vaishnav cook. He's so together. You order it, comes in these huge tiffins. Yeah, we those that got my thing know it's such a facility, right? And how much does it cost? Like for 20 people, less than $100. Less than $100. So that was the day before I left. So it's not only hosting them and speaking to them and feeding them and then cleaning my apartment and then packing and then I when I found out, I didn't realize it, but this student of mine, when he was 12, from a Radharaman Goswami family, I'm pretty close to him, and he's 50 now. He became a prominent Ayurvedic physician, and he has a clinic 15 minutes by motorcycle from my ashram with a beautiful, beautiful lake in the middle of the whole thing. So a friend of mine was getting treatment, and his disciple was picking me up every day to go read with him. And it's hair raising going on a motorcycle through some of that traffic in Govardhan. And it was like, so, yeah. But this was pretty good. This is pretty good. Now I'll rest up in the week, and I'm for the first time, I'm reading the Ramayana. I haven't read the Ramayana for a while. I haven't never read the Ramayana. I haven't read the Mahabharata. And I said, oh my God, I have to do this. I'm reading the Ramayana. That's going to be so hopefully I'll be able to speak something on the Ramayana. I always dread that day because I have so many things I want to share. So many things I want to share, but it's not like the Ramayana. And I always like to give one. But anyway, I'm kind of fired up about it. Okay, let's see. We have a little small group here of the faithfuls. Wow. I don't even see Jamuna Jaya. Amazing. Gail, hi, Bo, you're up. Anything?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Um, it was just nice to hear a lot of your familiar points. It was very nice, very nice class, Maharaj.
But
Thank you.
when you present them again, you get more expert at them. But anyway, go ahead. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, you always hear, nuances to things that, illuminate things that,
Yeah.
you know. So, actually, that's it, Maharaj. Not nothing much from me today.
Oh wow. Just when I need you, Gail.
I'm sorry, Maharaj.
When I need you to like it because it's only 8:11 and I haven't finished yet. And I didn't have Jamuna Jaya, and I was at Gail now. Here, I'll give her the stage now. She can ask her
Yeah.
question, and you come
Well,
up with
what happened, to be honest, Maharaj, is that, you know, Shameshri left for New Vrindavan today. She just came back from India like 3 days ago, and she's off to New Vrindavan for 2 months. And so I was like seeing her
she,
off and all of that
she's
during the
off.
class
He's off for New Vrindavan for how long?
for 2 months,
To do what?
but then of course, say,
To do what?
well, who knows? you
Gail's
know,
Gail has a daughter who's a Pati Vrajakacharya. She just
yeah,
traveled.
because
I have to say that was one of the things when I was thinking of that Sunday school and how you took your daughter to Tuaco all the time. and she became a devotee. And I saw her at the Rishikesh festival, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is unbelievable. 500 Westerners coming every single day, and she's just on fire, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, after she comes back from New Vrindavan, she'll be here for like just maybe a month or so. And then Indra Maharaj, she'll be doing the Polish tour in Italy this time. So she'll be going back for a couple months for
Well,
that.
and I met Indradyumna Swami there. I told she speaks Italian, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, after that Polish tour, she was doing it 3 years. She speaks a little Polish too. She was doing dramas in Polish, and I
Yeah,
heard from.
but she's half Italian, so that's like
Mhm.
forte. Yeah.
And then
Okay.
and then in Maharaj, he'll be doing Jagannath Puri this year, so she's planning to go for that you know after
When
the
is what?
Italy.
Oh, he's doing Puri in October.
Yeah, yeah. I think during Kartik he'll be doing Jagannath
Okay.
Puri. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's her dream.
What a life
To
she
do that.
has.
I don't know. Good work if you can get it.
What a life she has, and it's so nice. She has a father like Joseph, right?
Hmm.
He
Yeah,
really,
he's her servant.
well, he really helps in that way, because
Yeah.
that's great. Okay, Gail, I managed to wrap with you and take another 3 minutes, so you did some service. Okay. Anybody else like to say hello today? Good.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Krishnamrita. Thank you so much for the class. May I ask you how to preach without hurting other religious, without discriminating?
That's a very interesting question. And I had well, because what creed? He who loves God, his religion is perfect. I'm not interested in converting people who are, are pious and dedicated to God, you know. So I don't preach to people who are really devout unless they're not committed to their religion, or if they haven't gotten their that spark for it, which is an interesting thing, and I don't usually share it, but there's a whole story of this girl born in the movement who kind of took shelter of me, but it was like um I never hear from her, you know but once a year I would go to the place she was going, and she was happy to see me, etc., but I never hear from her. And she took shahada, she became a Muslim, and she writes me letters. Dear Gurudev, I just finished Ramadan. I fasted for 1 month, and I prayed 5 times a day. And in fact, I'm speaking her tomorrow. So, it was a whole, she wrote me very beautiful letters. Why, what happened, and what this. And she still says, Hare Krishna Gurudev, Guruji. I said, it's amazing. Now you're communicating with me. Before you weren't. But the interesting story is, I just told her that as long as you're a vegetarian, as long as you don't criticize other people or other religions, and as long as you still serve your mother. And if she still does that, so I can't complain. So I think we have to focus on the people who have no religion. Okay, thank you, so. And I'm very excited to come to Russia. I'll probably come maybe the third week of July. Spend 3 weeks. So I'll see you there. Okay, thank you so much. Okay,
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you greatly. Thank you greatly. Oh, very
okay.
glad.
Anybody else like to say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Slal Govinda.
And Braja, thank you for class.
Thanks for class.
I'm almost in the promised land of New Jersey. It's so close, but somehow you can't buy a ticket to New Jersey on West 278 Gothel Bridge. It's taking so long. Yeah, that Mahabhav Dham, huh? You read that?
Wow,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, he's such a Vaishnav. But, it's amazing because the only visa he gets, he has to leave the country 3 months. Every 3 months, he has to leave the country with his wife and 3 kids, and his mother and his and 150 deities. That's why he has so many kids. They each carry a package of 30 deities. But it's so great going to his house because it's not just going to his house. It's kind of like I joke. It's almost like a Borat movie because he has like a bed. He has like a bed in the middle of the living room, and he has like not Borat movie, but it's like it's almost old country, right? Even though it's
Yeah.
brunch, because he has his his mother, his sister, his aunt, but he has his sacred room with 100. He's such a devotee. This guy. I mean, he
Amazing.
has such a samskar for loving Vaishnavas.
Wow.
I'll show a video on. I think I posted videos. Okay, ready to go to Middletown to get that chili. Disciple knows the heart of the guru.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Welcome back.
Okay. I'm okay. Good.
Sunday. All right, well.
Anybody else want to say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's Jai Subhadra.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
I'm going to meet you. I have some idea to have some program at your place.
great.
I even have the dates, and we'll look at the calendars. Okay.
All right, great. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Anybody else like to say hello?
Hare Krishna to Maharaj. Oh, sorry. Hi,
Hi,
good to
Rowan.
see you. Looking forward to seeing you soon.
Are you in Philly?
Transitioning. I'm making my way over slowly.
Okay, so you can be trans Philly.
Yes, I guess so. I am right now. So yeah, I'll see you Sunday. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Okay, great. We have some time to chat too, catch up.
Yes, great.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Haribo, anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for class.
Wow, great. Okay, nice to see you. Will I see you on Sunday?
Yes, you will. I'll be there. Looking forward to it.
Okay, Haribo.
Haribo.
Anybody else say hello? Okay. I look at the list, I see all the sincere people that managed to come. Okay, I'm reading the list. Thank you. Okay. Haribo.